Hey everybody, and welcome. Very excited to have you guys with us today. We're just waiting one more second as we have a few more folks coming in to today's presentation of SafetyHQ Mastering Safe Practices during National Safety Month. So just give us one more minute and we'll be getting started here in a second. But thank you very much and excited to talk with you guys soon. Alrighty, let's see. So people still trickling in a little bit here, but we'll get started just in the meantime while we're waiting. For those of you that are not familiar, we are here to see some Safety HQ today, in particular, how we can use it to master some safety practices during what is, again, if you're not aware, National Safety Month. So happy to have you guys all joining with us today to learn a little bit more. We'll talk about some practices a little bit outside Safety HQ, some things within Safety HQ, but we're not going to get into the full detail of Safety HQ in particular. This is going to be kind of a blend. Part of it's going to show you what this product can do and offer. The other is going to be talking kind of best practices in general as a whole too. So we have some flexibility there. If you are looking for more information for on Safety HQ and would like maybe a more detailed demo, just let us know. We can connect at any time too. My email is edv@foundationsoft.com, or just follow up to the email that you'll receive shortly after the broadcast. But without further ado, let's jump in and talk about aligning some best practices, especially in the summer and for National Safety Month as a whole. So I guess number one, and if you guys aren't familiar, SafetyHQ is an app. We can use this iPhone, Android, tablet, what have you. It'll connect up with your accounting system for projects, employees, all those items as well. But the big thing that we're talking here today is best practices, right? So I'm going to take this down to a very rudimentary level. So if you guys aren't doing anything from a safety perspective right now, or maybe you guys are growing, what have you, there's a number of reasons that will require you to kind of keep an eye on safety. Some of them might be the type of project you do. You know, maybe we want to start doing some larger projects, some government projects, maybe some projects for some larger general contractors that want to see or need to see some more as far as the safety compliance. And that's why the first and foremost step is tracking everything you do from a safety compliance standpoint. It's always beneficial to have from a CYA perspective, unfortunately, also just from a perspective of showing that you're a professional organization that takes things seriously, and being able to present those in a regular time basis is really handy for that as well. Now, what's required from most companies as far as a safety perspective? That's going to vary, right? It might vary for who you're working with, internal practices or procedures or what have you. But I always like to show toolbox talks, or at least start with toolbox talks as a conversation piece, because everybody should be doing something in the way of toolbox talks as a whole, right? So regardless of what type of work you do, regardless of your needs, what have you, having a regular safety talk with your team, call it a toolbox talk, call it a tailgate talk, call it a safety stand-up, what have you, call it whatever you like, but just make sure you're regularly talking with your team about skills, things to be mindful of, safety best practices as a whole. This most often is done on a weekly basis. Daily basis is better if you can, but at the very least, something on a weekly basis. This can be done through your foreman broadcasting that message out to individuals on their crew. This could be something where you create, in SafetyHQ, you can actually create toolbox talks. You can use our library of 250 some odd toolbox talks, and you can actually schedule these out. So if you got people doing multiple items and you need to schedule these for foreman or toolbox or crews at a later date, you can certainly do so. I'm just scheduling these out in advance a little bit myself here, just to give myself a little bit of a heads up. But make sure you're doing toolbox talks first and foremost, and then showing the participation is key. So it's one thing to actually complete the toolbox talks. It's another thing to actually show that participation. And what I mean by that is, so I'll go ahead and let's do a toolbox talk. I'll pick one from my inbox here as an example. In SafetyHQ, it's pretty easy. I can select a project. I can select my signature as a foreman. I can also sign off on this as an individual. But regardless of how you do it, even if it's on paper, select these signatures, have your team sign off and show that they were present. It doesn't do you any good to complete a toolbox talk if you don't show that the team was there, had participated, and was involved too. So at least from a legal standpoint or a recourse standpoint, not super helpful. I'm sure the team will obviously be educated and will benefit from that training as a whole. But the big piece here is showing some kind of record that your team was in attendance. So again, in SafetyHQ, we can do that on an individual basis. We can do this on a crew basis like this. Great. The second piece, and this is going to kind of carry throughout the presentation as we go here today, is tracking and managing these completed items, right? If you have 1,000 toolbox talks that you did, but if you get asked for them and you can't present them, again, also doesn't do you any good. So for SafetyHQ, I'm a little bit biased. These are automatically organized by project, date range, who submitted them, things along those lines. These are also automatically tied to the employee record. So if you need to review that, that's automatically on this employee's record at any time. Great. But from a big picture perspective too, having some records to show that the team is doing these, tracking and managing, that's critical. So if I pick like a toolbox talk here, I want my team to do this on a weekly basis. I can see how they're participating, or in this case, lack thereof. For me, I can see that I've done 3 of them. I'm above and beyond. I've done what I needed. I can also notify the team and let them know that they need to get those toolbox talks completed here as well also. So again, having a practice in place is good. The follow-up is going to be really critical to make sure that the team actually sees that this is important, sees that this is something that you value, and sees that this is something that you will be checking in on and reviewing on a regular basis. So having a practice in place, having the content, having the team ready to administer or share or discuss these topics is all critical. But the last piece of that puzzle is the follow-up. It's probably not going to get done on the field on a regular basis or at all if you're not going through and making sure that the team is managing that regularly and getting those completed also. So we have some tools in here. Again, I'm a little bit biased, but we have some tools in here that we can use to track and manage that. We have some additional tools to show additional completion over, this is a quarterly, weekly basis, what have you too. So we can do some extra items in here to review if you're doing an incentive program or what have you. But I guess that's step number 1. If you're not doing anything, start with toolbox talks. That's an easy thing to implement. Your trade organization might have them, your insurance provider might have them, or there's always Google. You can always pull some of those up. Or again, we also have about 250 in SafetyHQ that we can provide to you, along with some customizations to add your own as well too. As far as some other items go from a form and regular safety practice basis, I think it's also really important to manage your job site forms, right? If you have a JHA, or if you guys just do them because I do them on a couple of projects a year because the GC asks for them, you're not really getting the benefit of going through and tracking and managing those, right? If you make it a regular part of the team's regular practices and best practices and processes, it's really easy to convince them to do these regularly, to focus on safety, and to be able to manage these appropriately and professionally when they have to provide them for a GC or something like that that's going to ask for them. So in my example, we have some customized forms. So my JHA can be completely customized based on the needs, based on, you know, who's asking for it, what have you. But I do this pretty simply. I'll skip over some fields as I go, but the key here, and this is whether you use our solution or not, is really making sure that we're not overwhelming the team with a whole bunch of information that isn't relevant for them. So for me, if I'm going to do a setup and load of materials, great. I pick what I've selected, I hit next. This is only going to show me the hazard types related to the setup and load of materials. I'll pick, you know, fall protection and I don't know, environmental. It's going to show me some fall protection and environmental hazards. Again, these are fully customizable within SafetyHQ, but keeping this nice and focused on just the controls related to those hazards that we're addressing and just the hazards that we're addressing based on the type of work we're doing is going to save the team a whole bunch of time out in the field. You're going to get better participation as far as their aptitude, you know, their attention and their actual comprehension of the information that you're providing. So they're not going through, they're not losing, you know, losing interest because you're taking them through 20 pages or what have you. You're showing them just what's important as they continue to progress. Great. You can go through these items. You can take photos in SafetyHQ. You can collect signatures, manage some things along those lines here too. Great. And just like our toolbox talks, and I don't even know if I show this on the toolbox talks, again, they're managed and organized by project, who completed them. You have up to the minute live reporting to show who has and who has not completed their entries. And then in here, I can also go ahead and manage this as well too. So I can go ahead, and I'll pull this up on the other screen. This would be customized to your name, your logo, things along those lines. You can track and manage those, share a professional PDF of your JHA, any images, photos you took, share that with whoever needs to review that as well too. So we have a bunch of other tools in here. Pretty much any form that the team is completing on site, we can make quicker, more efficient, and easy to use within SafetyHQ. So again, if you want the team to start participating, you need to make safety manageable. You need to make it digestible. We do a pretty good job of it in SafetyHQ, but regardless, even if you're doing this in paper, make this simple, make this focused for the team so that you're not overwhelming them with a whole bunch of stuff. It's really hard to implement this, especially if you're going from zero, you know, to a 15-page JHA amongst other things. The team's just going to check out, you know, in our experience. So we also have some other tools. I'll just show you this briefly. Like we have a site inspection. Doing regular site inspections not only is going to be good from a you know, a documentation and a compliance standard, but at the same time, it's putting your foreman or project managers or whoever's participating in these in a good mindset and, you know, a common practice to go through and keep an eye out for things on the site rather than just kind of going through the motions on a day-to-day basis. If you participate in a site inspection or a site walk or a site audit, what have you, it's going to keep the team in a mindset of looking for deficiencies, looking for ways to improve, and looking for concerns on the site. So for us, we have a lot of tools. Again, these forms are going to be customizable. They're going to be reflexive and use logic. So if I hit yes here, it's going to ask me some additional questions. If I hit NA, I don't have to worry about it. Or if I do see an issue on the site, we can automatically catalog that, assign that out, and then track and manage that to whoever needs to review that as well too. So if I take a photo, maybe assign that out, I can mark that photo up as I'd like to. Great. I don't know, we'll go ahead. This would go to my camera or my camera roll if I'm on a mobile device. But again, it's keeping the team focused on what actually needs or can be presenting an issue on the job site. I'll pick this as I go here. Great. We're just kind of highlighting a particular area to show that we can mark some of these photos up. And then I can continue on with my site evaluation. This is going to automatically notify my team that they need to pay attention to a particular circumstance. My markup or write-up wasn't very relative to the issue that we had at hand. But you can go ahead and manage these items. These, again, are also saved, organized by project, by all these other items as I need to select them. they're saved, they're easily manageable, they're organized appropriately. So if I do ever need to come back and reference these, I have some really easy tasks and items to do so. Within SafetyHQ, there's a whole bunch of other things. We can do equipment inspections that will automatically set equipment inspection dates and when that needs to be inspected again. A lot of tools within these forms, and again, they're fully customizable here as well too. But most of the focus that we're talking today is about best practices and things like that. And with the next 15 minutes, I don't want to kind of get into the weeds, but if you did want to see that in more detail, just let me know and I'd be happy to help. Keeping safety data sheets on hand is not only a requirement, but it's also a good practice to keep your team focused on what they may or may not need to review. Again, these can be kind of overwhelming, especially if you have them in a binder amongst 200 pages or what have you. Having these readily accessible should something happen is key. I'll just pick like WD-40 as an example. Great. If I run into a particular issue with WD-40, that's a pretty universal product. I can pull this up regularly, quickly, and handle this appropriately. So again, if you're not using a solution such as SafetyHQ, have these maybe earmarked for some of the things that you use most often. I know you'll probably have to, identify these for jobs, things along those lines. We have an extensive database, 2.3 million records that we can limit based on manufacturer. You can request them. We'll reach out and get you additional SDSs and kind of handle all that for you. But again, even if you're not, make sure you take some practices to organize this so that the team could get to what they need as quickly as they can. Because if it's in a binder of 150 products, it's not going to help you if you need to pull it up on, in an emergency or, an accident basis. So. Since we're talking about best practices and how we can kind of keep the team safe, continued education is key, right? This kind of aligns with toolbox talks, but having a way to continually educate and train the team is critical. It shows them that not only you care about their development, but you care about their safety. And, regardless of what the guys may say, they want to work with safe people and they want to work in a safe environment. I know it's not the coolest or the toughest thing to kind of share with your supervisors or share amongst a group, but making a commitment to continually educate your team is critical. And with SafetyHQ, we could do that. We can align and assign out trainings regardless of where that team might be at. We can assign those out. We can require them to take quizzes. This is an OSHA requirement to have a verification of knowledge transfer. But however you do that, make sure that the team knows that you will be following up. This isn't just something that they need to look at or they can skim through briefly. Let them know that this is something you're going to follow up with, either with a quiz, with some questions on the job site, what have you. Incentivize as you see fit. That's pretty handy when you're starting to talk about additional education as well. But again, the other component of that is the compliance and management. So you want to make sure that not only are you providing your team trainings and certifications and continued education to make sure that they're safe, but showing and managing, in this case, I'll pick Bill. I can pick Bill. Here's his certifications. I can share those. I can produce a certificate. I can do whatever I need here. I can pull those up quickly if I get asked for those at any point. I can do that on the job site just by simply selecting that certification and providing it here. But the system's going to go ahead and automatically notify you of who's expiring on what certifications coming up. We can go ahead and organize that by, I don't know. We'll see, maybe we got a first aid consultant coming in. We want to see who's expiring in the near future. We can go ahead and run a list to provide that information. Again, we'll send you some automatic notifications. And then we can track certifications that are done throughout this, outside of the system as well too. They don't all have to be lessons that we've provided to the team. But regardless, make sure that you have, some kind of organizational practice to make sure that the team is on top of their certifications, doing what they need to be doing. And then that's, again, showing not only that you care about them, that you care about safety, but it's also going to save you a lot of time and money because they're not going to have to go through a whole recertification process, what have you. And you have everything you need should anyone ever ask for it on the job site, which is happening more and more based on some OSHA areas of emphasis. So, and I know we're kind of coming down the home stretch here. We can also manage things by safety by project, by employee. As I mentioned previously, there's some cool things that we can do from an equipment perspective. Once we complete an equipment item inspection, it will set that inspection date. It will set that next inspection date. Great. We can see any equipment history, whether that might be repair requests, maintenance reviews, things along those lines. We can review our equipment by manufacturer, by status, things along those lines too. Depending on the trade or the field that you're in, equipment may be the biggest component of safety for you or the smallest. That's just going to depend on, the type of work you do. If you rent, you own. But either way, I encourage you to go ahead and keep your team focused on reviewing their equipment and items before they get into it. Maybe it's just a quick inspection, even if it's rental equipment that you guys don't really care about, from like a longevity or a repair standpoint. Have them take a couple of moments just to review that piece of equipment before they get on it. They're thinking about all of the components. They're thinking about all those safety aspects. And especially if you own that equipment, they're thinking about, the well-being of the equipment and themselves as well too. So putting them in that mindset is just as important as tracking and managing the equipment repair requests, inspections, things along those lines as well too. So a lot of things that we can get into on there as well, as far as assigning these to particular jobs, assigning these to employees, things along those lines also too. Kind of coming down the home stretch here. Again, I know we only got another about 5 minutes or so here too. So incident reporting as a whole, this is going to be critically important. I know, everyone is reporting on their major incidents, the OSHA recordables, what have you. But taking some time to also track near misses, making the team feel comfortable with near misses is really important too. If the team just feels like anytime we report something, it's a huge deal, and they don't feel necessarily comfortable with that, it's going to provide, a pressure that, we might have some additional items, or, we're reluctant to record or report these items. But that's critical. Even if it's, a non-recordable, we want them to go ahead and track near misses. We want them to track some things along those lines, so that we can be better, we can prevent injuries, we can prevent accidents, and then we have an open and sharing safety culture with the company, which sounds like a lot of kind of warm and fuzzy, but it really is key. We want the team to be open and to be able to ask questions and to be able to share concerns, things along those lines. Because if the only time you really talk about safety is when there's an emergency or when there's a major accident, the team's going to be very reluctant to participate. And you might lose out on some really good opportunities to not only educate, but prevent injuries and accidents as you go as well too. So for our incident reporting, this is going to automatically route once I complete this. So I have some smaller items. This is how the team's going to start. They'll submit this. This will be routed automatically to HR, safety, ownership, whomever. And then whoever's next in line can track and manage more details as they get in here. Attach, reports from the hospital or records, additional photos, track things like days away from work, root cause analysis, all that. But having a process once something goes wrong is absolutely critical, so that way you don't miss any steps that you might need later. Should there be an investigation? Should there be, some workers' comp related items that you need to address? Again, SafetyHQ automates that, simplifies that process for you, but make sure that you have a practice in place, even if you don't have a lot of incidents. We had a client the other day that was just getting started on SafetyHQ. The day after they signed up, they had 3 incidents. They had never had an incident. They're 3 unrelated incidents. They had never had an incident in the 2 prior years. So they can sneak up in a hurry, especially as you scale, grow, do different types of work, what have you. Have a practice in place, or again, choose a solution that automates it for you. But in alignment with that, and kind of what I'll wrap this up with in the last 4 or 5 minutes, and if you guys have questions, please share them in the chat box. I'd be happy to get to as many as we can coming on the home stretch here as well. But tracking and managing, those items as far as trends, analysis is key as well too, right? So it's key if we want to track and manage incidents and what has and has not occurred. Again, this is also going to do your OSHA 300A for you, so it's really going to simplify the process. But even on the front end of that, we can go ahead. I showed you those corrective actions earlier. This will show you leading indicators. This will show you trends. This will show you areas of emphasis that we need to focus on and how we're doing as a whole too. So having that feedback and not only collecting all this information, but utilizing it to make decisions and focus our practices is going to be really key for preventing injuries and accidents as well too. So again, collecting all the data is great, but having those practices of reviewing that data and reviewing that information that we've collected to either connect with the team, talk about some safety concerns that they have, talk about how they're performing those safety evaluations, audits, what have you, or talk about those actual data points, the leading indicators, trends, analysis, things like that, all really key in establishing some safe practices on and off the job site too. So with that, I know we have about 2 or 3 questions. I will do my best to answer those as we kind of get into here as well too. So I think I closed that out, but I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a moment, just so I can pull this up. So if you guys need to contact me, I'll have a quick one for you here too. And I'll just leave it there. We don't need to go into the whole presentation mode, but feel free to reach out to me at any time too. There's a lot that we can do from a SafetyHQ perspective, and I'd be happy to give you a lot more detail. We cut out about 30 to 40 minutes of what we normally get into from the comprehensive data solution here too. So, but one of the questions that we got here is from Darren. It looks like Darren. Darren's asking, my team isn't really interested in, and I'm reading these live, so I apologize. My team isn't really interested in participating in a lot of these safety items. I see that they pencil whip or quickly work their way through these items just to complete them. Is there any way to get them more involved and invested into our safety program? That's a great question. So that's kind of what we talked about here. Making the information relevant to the team is absolutely critical. Making it easy to manage and simple, whether it's through an app, whether it's, again, through paper that's focused. You know, if you give them a 15-page document, they're going to automatically become overwhelmed before they even open up and review some of those questions as it goes. So keep those questions focused, make them relevant onto the team. And I know that's not always possible. Sometimes you guys are doing JHAs for other people or in other formats that you guys aren't relative to. And if you're doing it on paper, you don't have the ability to make those forms use logic like we do and have SafetyHQ. But again, keep the team focused on just some critical items. Maybe this is important, an important time to reevaluate some of your safety practices, trim up some of those JHAs, things like that. That might be a good time to do some items like that also. Or, you know, just simply, you know, incentivization, right? You know, if the team is really not focused on those, have some questions in there or have some follow-up on those items. If you know that they're never going to look at it, the chances of them putting in some kind of, you know, goofball answers is going to be way higher. If they know that somebody's going to look at it and these are regularly reviewed, that's going to make a huge difference as far as their participation and interest in filling those out thoughtfully. So yeah, that's a really good question. That's something we run into all the time. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, a lot of folks benefit from SafetyHQ as a whole. I got time for one more here. So I'm going to take Susan's question here. So Susan is asking, let's see, I was just reading this. So Susan's asking, my team has different requirements on each job site. Is there a way that we can get them to, I'm going to kind of trim this answer off, Susan, so I apologize. It sounds like she's asking the team has to do different things based on the job that they're working, and it's hard to keep them focused on one item and things like that too. So I think that kind of relates to our last question. We want them to be very focused in on just the tasks that they're doing. So even though the tasks and requirements might change from job to job, that's important. We want them to focus in on those items because the tasks and items have changed. It's not something you can do in your sleep. It's something that's going to require a little bit more attention, a little bit more detail. So that is a good time to really focus them in on just what they're doing for that job, and just what they're doing for either maybe that task or week or what have you too. So that's a really good area to also emphasize with a toolbox talk, some things along those lines to keep them focused in there as well too. But again, making things relevant is probably the biggest item you can make. And that's kind of where we even go back into the new near miss reporting, things along those lines. If they can see that these things can happen to them and do almost happen to them, and not shaming people on the reporting side, it really does keep things relevant. It keeps them top of mind, and it is regularly shown in our safety participation how that's changed and how that's improved as well also. So with that, I know we've come up to our half hour here. I went kind of quickly here, guys, and I know we couldn't get into a whole bunch of details. If you have any questions that maybe I can help you with either on SafetyHQ or just from our experience, let me know. I'll be happy to help however I can. But again, if you would like a more in-depth, detailed demo on SafetyHQ, I'd be happy to help. Just give me a shout at any of those contact items here below. But with that, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us today on Mastering Safety Practices, and have a safe National Safety Month out here in June, and hope to hear from you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.